Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video. What's up everybody? Today I'm going to be going over how to rune the Lightning Emperors. And first up is our friend Bolverk. He is the Water Lightning Emperor. How you want to rune Bolverk depends on where you're going to use him. Okay, if you're going to use him in PvP, you got to have will runes. I recommend will runes anyway because you want to start out with as many stacks as possible. Most people put Bolverk on shield, will, and revenge. The reason is this first skill here, he will attack and steal a beneficial effect. When you get him fully skilled up, it's 100%. So he will be adding to his stacks every turn he goes. Okay, what he does is he will gain knowledge anytime he gets a beneficial effect and anytime an enemy is granted with the beneficial effect. Okay, once you get 5, which is where you want to be, then you decrease the current hit points of the enemy target by 10% for every knowledge. But when you have 5, it decreases it by their max HP. That's important. And then after that, it's going to heal your entire team. Okay, so you want to use it when it has 5 stacks. He does have a leader skill. It's quite useful. It adds quite a bit of hit points and guild content. I believe Louise, the Wind Paladin, also has one similar, but this is the most hit point bonus that you're going to find anywhere for guild content. It's 44%. No, I take that back. You can get some 50% from the chimeras. But this is to everybody, not just one element like the chimeras have. All right. You can also run him on Swift Will. I wouldn't personally do that, but you want to have your Bolverk go and then have him go as fast as possible. It's not going to help to have violent runes on him because when he goes and he uses Forbidden Galder and there's no cooldown time on that, all of his knowledge is gone. So having him go, if he goes and uses Forbidden Galder, now he has 0 knowledge. So having him go again, doesn't really help. So I would not put him on violent runes. Swift Will possibly, but really Shield Will and Revenge, so that you start with 2 stacks and you've got that chance to revenge and steal something from them. Okay, what do you put on your rune slots? I've seen them built several different ways. Since he needs to go and be as fast as possible, I think you've got to have speed on slot 2. Okay. I've seen him built both ways with HP for slots 4 and 6 or defense HP. You can put defense or HP on 4 or 6, doesn't matter. Or you can just do all HP. Okay, but your target is you want to be getting over 30,000 hit points. As I said here, if you have really, really good speed substats, then you might consider doing triple HP basically, or double HP with 1 defense. But I mean, you're going to have mid-20s or higher on your speed substats to make up for the 42 speed that you're going to lose from slot 2. So if you happen to have that, those would help. Now, if you're going to use him not in PvP, but you want to use him in player versus everything PvE, then let me bring this over and we will look here at this. If it's going to be PvE, I would still recommend the same thing as before, Shield Will, Revenge. But same thing in PvE, you could use Swift Will as well. Now, what are the requirements for his runes? Okay, really, you want to do the same thing, but since the monsters that you fight in the game are not going to be as tough as the monsters from other human players, you don't really have the speed requirements, okay? So that frees up your slot 2 rune, and I would put some attack on there, to be honest. Either you could have triple HP or 2 HPs and a defense for a PvE, but I think it does help to have some attack on him because you want your first skill to do at least some damage. And so if you're going to use him in PvE, I personally would put attack on slot 2. I'd have attack, hit points, and defense is what I would have. Let's look at where Bolverk is used generally. All right. Bolverk. Bolverk is used in the scenarios. He's good everywhere in the scenarios. He is good in the arena. He's great in the arena. He's great in the World Arena, Trial of Ascension, and Guild War, Guild Siege. But Forbidden Geldnir does not really work like we want it to work against bosses. Bosses get excluded, and so he's not really good against bosses. You don't want to use him against, basically in the dragon's boss or the giant's boss or any boss. But he is good in all the other places that I've mentioned there. Now, where do you want to pair him with? I would put Bolverk really against any units that are going to give him buffs or that are going to give the enemy buffs. He does awesome against Amelia, Wusa, Chilling, any of the pandas, the paladins, Velajewel, Ariel, anything that's giving a couple of buffs every turn to the enemy. Since that gets spread amongst all of them, it's he's going to be having 5 stacks. When you pair him with or against those types of monsters, he'll be able to use Forbidden Geldnir basically every turn and do major damage that way. And that's why you don't need to have his really much attack at all. I would make him as tanky as possible so that it's very hard to kill him. I think you want to have over 34,000 hit points and somewhere around 1,500 or higher defense. You want to make it hard for Lucians to get him, and at the same time you want to be able to survive against anything except for like a copper or something like that. So let's go next to Baleygr, the Fire Lightning Emperor. Where are you going to use him? Well, basically, right now, the best place where he's being used is not in PvP, but it's actually PvE. So I kind of want to start there. In PvE, he's awesome. Baleygr and Katarina right now are all the rave for the Raid 5. So with that said, you're very likely going to have him on Rage and Will. You could also do Fatal and Will and still get high enough stats. But since he's really best used in the Rift raids or in the raid boss R5, you basically just want to have attack, crit damage, attack, and you want to have as much crit rate and crit damage as possible, up to at least 70 crit rate, and as much crit damage, like I said, as possible. He is great in the raids. He can be used for PvP, but problem with him is that he relies on other units in order to be good. So he's not good by himself. And if your other units die, then he suddenly becomes useless. So I feel like it's always a handicap to try to use a unit in PvP where it's only good if something else is also alive, because now I've got, it makes it harder to use them. He gains knowledge whenever he is granted with a beneficial effect, or if somebody dies. If somebody on your team or the enemy dies, he's going to get 3 knowledge. And once he has full knowledge, he's going to do Start of Apocalypse. Now I want to show you guys something. I have a little chart here just to show you. Start of Apocalypse attacks 5 times. Okay, and those 5 attacks, the multiplier is a 4, so he actually has a 20 on his multiplier. And if I pull up here this and I sort this from the largest to the smallest, let me scoot this over so you guys can see. I have Baleygr highlighted there in the red, okay, and Katarina is in the yellow. Those are the ones that, there are a couple of monsters that will do more damage. What I've basically done, you have Brandia, but Baleygr here, Start of Apocalypse, I've plugged in almost every single monster, all of the 5 and 4 and 3 stars. And this shows Baleygr is near the very top. And it's because he has right here 5 multi-hits times the 4. He actually is 20 on his multiplier. Imagine if he had 1 hit at 20, 5 hits at 4 is the same thing. So he far exceeds these other people's multipliers. He's incredible. And so what that means is that when it comes time for damage, where he's at, and I have another column over here where I can input I've input the data for the R5 boss. If I change the defense of the monster, these values would all change because monsters with super high defense, ignoring defense monsters are going to do better damage. But Baleygr against the R5 boss here should do about 80,000 or more damage, depending on, and you can obviously do a lot more than that if you have better buffs. But this is just something I built to look at and to be able to compare apples to apples. Okay, where would you use Baleygr? Well, kind of already said that. You want to use him in the Rift Raid with Katarina. That's where everybody uses him. He does have a great guild leader skill. He's going to add 44% power in Guild Wars or Siege. But you're going to have to pair him with people who are going to buff him in order to really do a lot of damage. So that's the Fire Lightning Emperor. Let's go on now to Odin. Let's go down and over here. Odin. Odin is our next. All right. How you're going to rune Odin is really the same thing. It depends on where you're going to use him. Okay. Odin gains knowledge when he gets beneficial effects, just like Baleygr. If somebody else dies on your team or the other team, he's going to get 3. So I use Odin. I have him. I use him all the time. And how I use him is I pair him with Kabesanov, and I have him on Will, and I have him on Rage, and then Kabesanov has a shield rune, and what that means is Odin always starts with 2 stacks, and then when Kabesanov goes, he gives him invincibility, it gives him the attack buff and the critical rate buff, and he's got 5 stacks at that point. He's immune to everything and he's invincible. So he basically one-shots people all the time. Something else that goes really great for him, he's got this critical rate increase in guild content, super large. And his passive skill here, if you got 50, for every knowledge you have, he's going to ignore part of their defense. But if you have 5 knowledge, then he ignores it all. And so even if you don't have 5, he still can do quite a lot of damage. And it's his first attack. It's just like all the other Lightning Emperors. He's going to still a beneficial effect. Goes up to 100% once you have skilled him up. Since you can fuse monsters to make as many Baleygrs as you want. I don't use my Devilmons on Odin because I just make a whole bunch of Fire Lightning Emperors and feed them to Odin and to Baleygr and to Bolverk. But that's just me. I save my Devilmons for other stuff. All right. If you're going to use Odin in PvP, he does need some accuracy in order to steal buffs. I use him as a single target nuker, attack, crit damage, attack, because I know that Kabesanoff is going to make him invincible. But if it's perfectly viable to have him on speed, crit damage, attack, because he can ignore defense though, I mean, you could put him on hit points at the end, but I wouldn't do that. Because to get the most advantage out of his skill set, you need to have some good attack on him. Now, if you're going to use Odin in PvE, same thing. You can have Will Rage or Will Fatal, but you don't need the speed in slot 2 because basically you're going to outspeed all the monsters. So you don't have to have a ton of speed if you're going to use them in PvE. Now let's bring up where can you use Odin. All right, where do we use Odin? Everywhere except dragons because of the elemental disadvantage, the Fire Rift Beasts, and the Hall of Fire. Odin shines everywhere else. He's one of those types of units you can use anywhere. Of all of the monsters that ignore defense, Odin is number 7 on the damage ranking that tab that I have here. If I sort this according to monsters that ignore defense, here they all are, and then when I scroll over to the right, it still lists them in order of who does the most damage. So Odin is right down here. Now, Faye is further down. She actually does more damage than Odin with her because she ignores defense 25% of the time. But anyway, Odin is near the very top, and so he can one-shot a lot of people. I would definitely use Odin all the time if I were you. He's one of the best units, I think, in the game. Okay, let's move on to the light and dark. I'm not going to spend much time on them because I know most of you don't have these 5-star light and dark monsters, but I do feel like it's worth just mentioning them. Both Geldnir and Herteit, or I'm not sure how you say his name, Herteit maybe. Geldnir gains knowledge when you are an enemy, and his special deal is if an ally gets attacked, then he uses one of his knowledge and he heals the ally by 35% of the damage. Okay, or if you have 5, then he gets healed by 70%. So he is great at stopping other people from dying, basically. They'll get hit, but then he basically reduces the amount they get hit by. Like all the other Lightning Emperors, he steals something. He does have a guild leader speed skill. This might be where he shines the most, 33%. You can't get higher than that, so that's great. He's great for guild content. So that's Geldnir. Again, Shield Will Revenge, probably the best. If you're going to use him in PvP, you could do Swift Will. You want him to go fast. You want him to be tanky. If you've got really good substats, you might consider triple HP or HP, and then 1 defense. But I personally would put speed on there. If you're going to use him in PvE, you want to. I think you'd want to be on Shield Will Revenge, and his rune requirements basically the same thing. But again, you don't need all of the speed in PvE, and so you can probably put whatever you want on slot 2, and that's going to work. What are the notes? Anything special about him? Yeah, Geldnir is basically used everywhere, especially in guild content. And like all the Fire Lightning Emperors, you're going to need to pair them with units that give buffs. I mean, you know, he needs buffs in order to really do his thing. So that's Geldnir. Let's move on to the last one, which is Herteit, which I would put Herteit. I don't know if he's a triple S, but he's definitely a double S quality unit. Herteit here is the Dark Lightning Emperor, and he is incredibly awesome. And what makes him so good is not that. I mean, he gains knowledge the same way everybody else does. When you're granted with the beneficial effect, he gets knowledge. This is what makes him awesome. He absorbs 25% of his attack power and defense for every knowledge that you have from the enemy target's attack power and defense. Okay. So let's say you had 1,000 attack power and 1,000 defense, and you have 5 knowledge. 5 knowledge is going to be 125%. So you're going to absorb 1,250 attack power and defense from the enemy. Okay, and you're going to steal all their beneficial effects. Now, what that means is in this fight, if you only had 1,000, you're basically giving a permanent attack break and defense break to the enemy that they cannot cleanse, because you just take, I mean, their defense is just lowered and they can't get rid of it. Their attack is lowered and they can't get rid of it. And it's a permanent attack buff and defense buff to you that they can't get rid of. You know, they can't strip that from you. Now, they can lower your defense, sure, and they could attack break you and defense break you, but they can't get rid of what you've stolen from somebody else. So if Herteit goes twice, it's usually game over. He's just going to start to one-shot everything because, you steal 1,000 attack and defense from 2 monsters, and you've suddenly got around 4,000 attack yourself, and it's game over for all of them. Okay, let's go over here. What runes? Shield Well Revenge. You want to steal buffs. Consider possibly Swift Will, but if you're going to put him on Swift Will, you need to have other monsters that are faster than him to give him buffs. Just remember that. That's why I would do Shield Well Revenge. Just like all the other Lightning Emperors, especially Herteit, you don't want to have like a super high attack but low defense. You kind of want to have a blend of both. If I were you, I'd try to shoot for at least 1,200 attack and 1,200 defense with around 30,000 hit points. Because then you're stealing 1,200, well, at 125%, you're stealing around 1,400 attack and defense from them, which, if they have 1,400 defense and you steal 1,400, I mean, anybody who hits them now, they have 0 defense, so it's like an ignored defense. So he is awesome. If you're building him for PvE, I would really do the same thing, Shield Well Revenge. And again, the speed requirements aren't as great, so it does make it a lot easier to build him. However, this skill Endless Desire, it is reduced against the boss. It's only 10%, so if you have 5 stacks, you're going to steal 50% of your attack power and 50% of your defense from the boss. But it's still extremely useful. It's a great way to make those boss monsters a lot more squishy and make them less powerful against your own guys. That is Herteit basically in a nutshell. Where do you use him? Well, basically everywhere, but remember the bosses, and he needs buffs just like the other Lightning Emperors. He needs to have balanced stats. So he kind of has a lot of different requirements on him, but he's so powerful. If you have this guy, which I know like hardly anybody does, but if you have him, he's awesome, and you should definitely build him and use him. I would use him everywhere. So that's Herteit. That's all the Lightning Emperors. If you have any questions, of course, leave them in the comments. If you want to take a look at mine, where are my Lightning Emperors here? Let's pull them up. I don't even know if I have them all. I have leftover runes built because I just got Bolverk. Yeah, I have some leftover runes on him. He's not that great. But see, I got like 1400 defense and about 1000 attack, 30,000 hit points. I definitely could make him better than that. My Odin, where's my Odin? His crit rate looks low, but I use him in guild content, and he gets the 33% lead for guild content, and then Kabesanoff gives him another 30%, so he gets a plus 63% crit rate, which means he's got 100%, and he basically one-shots anybody. That's what I use him for, and I combine him actually with Covenant, and once Covenant and Odin go, there's only one guy left, and it's 3v1, and I always win. So that's how I've built my Odin. Let's look at my Baleygr. Where is Baleygr? Baleygr I have built for raid 5s, as much attack as possible. He has my second best set of runes, and I made sure I had a 70% crit rate. So when it gets buffed by Immensity, it goes up to 100. Quite a bit of crit damage. And actually, you know, some of these runes, I don't even think I have all my runes. Yeah, I don't even have all these runes totally maxed out. I have some of them maxed out, but I need to grind a lot of these. And so you want to get good attack substats, crit rate and crit damage. I mean, I could get better runes, I just don't have them yet. And if I did, he would certainly do a lot more damage than this. So anyway, that is my Baleygr. I hope you guys liked it. Please like and subscribe to my channel.